Oro. Gwynoro. Dyma fe! Yeah!
Wel, eriod wedi cael cyflwyniad fyna. Wedi siarad dros canodd o lefydd, dros y hanner can mlynedd diwetha. Dim wedi siarad ers rhyw 10 mlynedd felly. Rwy byth yn paratoi araith. Dylanwad y capel o Ysgol Sul ac yn y blaen. So beth aw allan o fi nawr, dyw e ddim wedi cael ei gynllunio. It's a great privilege. In fact, I'm a bit touched by all this. The thought of being amongst you all in the 60s and the 70s was not on in Welsh politics. Welsh politics in the 60s and the 70s was full of hatred, animosity, titanic struggles that divided Wales, divided parties. It was not a good place to be. But I found myself in the middle of it, in Carmarthen. And this is a place I love very well. Born in this place, but that's not the issue. We are now talking about the future. And that's what it's all about, okay? We're all here. We've been a long time. I spoke with David Ewan about it earlier on. Odyn yn ni yma o hyd. That case has been solved. Everybody knows it. The issue now is, what are we going to do about it? Where do we go in the future? When you look back, think of the struggles, okay? I'm old enough to terrible struggles that Jim Griffiths and others fought inside the Labour Party. Bitter struggles. Jim Griffiths was hated inside his own party. He opposed an Irene Bevan on many, many issues. But Jim was determined, not in the 50s, in the 30s, to set up a Secretary of State for Wales and a Welsh office. I'll tell you a little story, and it's true, and I know it to be true, because it's told me many times. The Labour Party in the 50s hated what Jim was trying to do. And he wanted to have the commitment in the 1959 general election that should Labour win, there will be a Welsh office and a Secretary of State for Wales. It was blocked and blocked and blocked. It came to the manifesto for the 1964 general election. And the National Executive of the Labour Party met, Bevan one side of the table, Jim the other, both of them vehemently disagreeing. And Jim lost a vote. And he broke down and cried in a National Executive meeting. And Nye Bevan got up, crossed the table, put his hand on Jim's shoulder and said, Jim, if it means that to you, by God, you're going to have it. And that's what happened. Exactly what happened. By God, if it means that much to you, exactly you can have it. So for the first time, Wales was accepted as an administrative entity. Gwlad a Chenedl wrth ei hunan. But unfortunately, things have wavered, haven't they? I'm going to move forward now. I'm going to jump many, many decades, maybe. The issue is, what of the future? And that's where I am. At my age, what's done is done, okay? What's happened is happened. The pluses and the minuses, the divisions and the successes, what should have been, what could be, doesn't matter. It really does not matter. Don't dwell on it. Don't live in it. Ignore it, forget it, it's gone. What happens for the future is the essential thing now. And let me tell you some of my worries. The first clear worry is that after Brexit, the Welsh identity, the power of Wales within the Senedd, the power of a Welsh government has been deliberately undermined. It's not an accident. It's not an accident at all. They created an internal market bill. They created a levelling up setup. And all that was organised from Westminster. There's a sign outside there, Westminster is broken. Bob Bolanol, Westminster has been broken for decades. For decades and decades. And why is that? If you know the British Constitution, it's based on the sovereignty of Parliament. Parliament can do anything. Parliament could vote to say, you see that cat? That's a dog. It can. It's doing it now. The Supreme Court said Rwanda is not safe. What did the Tories, what did Sunak do? He passed a law that he made people vote on. Yes, Rwanda is life. Simple, isn't it? The sovereignty of Parliament, which has undermined so much of this country for years. And that is the challenge. How do you get the mindset of people to realise? And do you know what the sovereignty of Parliament means? The king in Parliament. That's what the sovereignty of Parliament is. It's historical, isn't it? I'm now beginning to tell you a lecture. I've got to stop it. So here we go. Boris Johnson came along, and what did Boris say? It was a mistake to have devolution. That's what he said. A mistake. And now we have a general election. And there's a Labour manifesto. Don't bother about the Tories, it's gone. That's gone. You know what I mean? It's, I told somebody yesterday, the election is over. You know, let's get on with the vote, we're wasting time here. The reality is, there's a Labour manifesto, and I read it last night. The reference to Wales, the sovereignty and the future of Wales, the reference to additional powers to the Welsh Senedd, hardly mentioned. Hardly mentioned. And my great fear is that we're going to have a Labour government, which I'm quite happy to have. But my great fear is that for 10 plus years, it will not give Wales too much at all. That's the reality. And that is the opportunity. That is the opportunity for the future. That is where we need to fit in, to stick in, to keep on campaigning, like people did in years of old. Do it now. Carry on. Joe Stevens, who will be the next Secretary of State for Wales, well, yeah. I know, but she will be, right? You can protest as much as you want, but she will be. Did you see her on Byd Bedwar? Did you listen to her very hard? What Joe Stevens really said is, Wales will be represented in the Senedd or in Westminster by her as the Welsh Office Secretary of State. That's taking us back 50 years. That was the argument decades ago. In fact, there is no case. I've said this for years. There is no case for a Secretary of State for Wales. We have a Senedd. If you want to represent Wales at Westminster to the Westminster government, the Senedd is the place. The first Secretary of State for Wales, the first Minister for Wales, although I've said more than once, yn Gymraeg, mae'n cael ei enw yn Prif Weinidog. Dim y Gweinidog cynta, it's not the First Minister, he's the Prif Weinidog. And I've told Draco many a time, listen, you're a Prime Minister. You're a Prime Minister. And we're going to miss Mark Drakeford, you mark my words. Mark Drakeford fought for Wales. He stood up to Boris Johnson. He stood up during the COVID. He stood up in many other areas. We're going to miss him. And we are landed with, God, it's public this meeting, isn't it? I better be careful. Huh? I better be careful. He won't be there long, don't worry. The general election will come and go, and the Labour Party have read the vibes, they've read the tea leaves, they know what's going to happen, and somewhere along the line, in the next year or so, he'll be gone. And he should be gone. What a fiasco, what a terrible situation. Now then, I was told actually, it's only 5 minutes, but blame Kevin Campbell, right? I was prepared to speak for 5 minutes, but he spent half an hour. Now, I just want to finish on one thing. I could go on forever. I was born in a situation where public speaking and oratory was a gift, and I've had that gift. I don't know where I've had it from. I blame Ysgol Sul, our capel, a gwrando ar hen bregethwyr Cymru, actorion mawr, Jubilee Young, Tom Nevin Williams, a'r bobl ma. Ac o fyna, deithodd e gyda fi. Now then, what of the future? We can't keep on marching, right? Do your rallies a couple of times a year, fine. We've now got to get serious. And the seriousness is we need to set up serious, significant organizations. The first one is citizen assemblies. Involve the people. Tynwch y bobl I fewn. Tynwch cymdeithas I fewn. Tynwch bobl cyffredin, Gwerin Cymru, I fewn I drafodaethau lleol. Not an organisation that we meet twice a year. We need this sort of event in every town and city and village in Wales for the next few years. That's what is. Doesn't matter if only 100 turn up. I know he's telling me to finish. Doesn't matter if only 100 turn up. We need that, and above all, we need a Welsh standing convention. Do you know what that means? It will be a permanent convention where representatives of civic society, voluntary organisation, charities, the churches, the unions. You must have politicians, you can have them if you want. But the reality is they should meet regularly, prepare reports, prepare. The writing of what needs to be done for Wales has been done. It was done by the Independent Commission. It was done by Plaid Cymru. I saw Adam earlier and I told him their booklet on Annibyniaeth is special, is brilliant. My son, Gwynoro, he does all sorts of things in that direction. We need action now. We need something substantial and serious and professional. And what is required is a Wales Standing Convention where people can meet together, academics, experienced people, and prepare for the future. Otherwise, I tell you now, you'll be campaigning 10 years' time. You'll be singing about Heed 10 years' time. But I want you to think about what are we going to do after today. Diolch yn fawr.